Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Geeked Out. My name is Kyle,
And I'm Juan.
and this week we are going back into the world of X-Men to watch. This week we watched X-Men Days of Future Past. Kind of figured that last week were 2 weeks ago. Sorry. Before we even start, I want to apologize to our listeners for taking that bit of that week hiatus last week. Just some things came up that couldn't be avoided. But we're back and continuing on, moving forward. And like I said, this week we watched Days of Future Past, and we were doing this in preparation of the new Disney Plus X-Men '97 cartoon, and kind of wanted to do something from both, I guess, eras of the X-Men movies. So we did the first movie a couple weeks ago, and then we jumped into this one. This movie was first released on May 23rd of 2014, and this was once again directed by Bryan Singer, who returned to the franchise after directing the first two films. It is the fifth film in the franchise, which now has, close to 10 movies probably. And I'm pretty sure that I'm guessing this is widely liked by most fans because it basically wipes out the debacle that was X-Men The Last Stand, which is widely panned as one of the worst. It currently has a 7.9 out of 10 rating on IMDb, and it is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a critic score of 90 and an audience score of 91, which is, I think that's pretty fair where it's at. It's a pretty decent rating, and probably I think where it belongs. This movie had an estimated budget of around $200 million, and it made just over $746 million. So that's not too shabby of a return, I would say.
Yeah.
When did you see this movie when it first came out in theaters, or was it a rental situation back when we could rent movies? I don't even know if the video stores were still open then.
I've definitely seen this in theaters. Yeah, for sure. Definitely opening week. I super hype over this movie, obviously, because it's the culmination of the newer and older generation of X-Men actors, and the hype was real when they all came out during, like, I forget which Comic-Con it was. Could have been San Diego. And it was super hype. Plus, based on a well-known X-Men storyline. So I was definitely the level of excitement was at an all-time high going into this.
I didn't see this movie in theaters, which is an odd statement. Yeah, because I'm a huge X-Men fan, but my big thing, I didn't see this. I didn't see First Class in theaters, and it was all because of what they did with The Last Stand. My hatred of that movie runs so deep.
Lord, really?
It completely turned me off of the whole franchise of what they were doing.
I can't hate it for like literally one moment, and it took 3 movies. It took 3 movies to see.
What moment is that?
Huh? Iceman finally turned it into ice.
Yeah, that.
She was tight.
I mean, now looking back on it now, I realize that I was kind of stupid with. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still hate that movie, but there were a lot more things in that movie that were redeemable and that were actually good about it. But at the time, it was like, when I saw The Last Stand, it was like I was just seeing red. And
I think you're mad because they, like, killed fucking Cyclops and they killed Professor X.
No, that stuff didn't bother me. It was just...
That bothered me. For sure it bothered me.
The Professor X thing probably bothered me, but Cyclops, meh, whatever.
I guess, yeah.
I don't mind Cyclops, but he's never been one of my favorites, so it's not like that was a huge thing for me. But I do remember when this movie was released on DVD and whatnot. I remember I had friends that were just constantly raving about it, and I said, you know what? If you guys say it's that good, I'll give it a shot. I'll watch First Class, which I was pleasantly surprised with. I really enjoyed First Class, um, and then when I watched this one, I was fucking blown away. I loved it, and to this day, it's one of my favorite X-Men movies, which is really funny considering I had no interest in seeing it when it was out.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the I kind of judge. I'm not like a huge Marvel and especially X-Men fan, growing up, being introduced to X-Men, watching the animated series. There's a super high standard there and a bias. So like most of these movies, I kind of put them in a category of they're good movies with X-Men in it, and then I judge them by being a good X-Men movie. This one is a great movie with X-Men in it, but as an X-Men movie, it's still good. It's just not great X-Men movie. But it is a great movie with X-Men in it. If that makes sense.
See, I'll say that I think that it's a great movie because, again, like you said, being the age that we are and being coming up and watching the animated series and that we were kids, one of the biggest storylines in the series is the Sentinels. And I mean, yeah, it took 5 fucking movies to get to this point, but
They were teased too. They were kind of cock
they were
teased
because was
throughout.
that was uh, First Class when you see the head in the danger room, or was that Last
That's
Stand?
that's Last Stand. That's like the beginning, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, they were teased then, but I mean, if anybody who's watched any of that show knows that that was such a huge storyline
It was in the
throughout.
first, yeah, it was the first episode.
That's how the show opens. So to finally see that done on screen in a movie was really cool. I mean, I know they look different, but I mean, what can you do about that?
Yeah,
I will say,
it's
when they first showed them back in the 70s, I don't mind the look, but I think they look really cool in the future the way they open because you find out that they've adapted um, all these different powers from different mutants, and the one that they really adapt is the power from Mystique, where they can basically adapt and kind of conform to, not conform, that's the wrong word, but they can basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Not assimilate, but they can.
mimic.
I honestly can't even think of the word that I'm trying to say. But it gives them different abilities like the Sentinels can use, and they can also almost like absorb.
Yeah,
Like you get the one who
like
at the
they combined like Mystique's power with kind of like Rogue's power,
yeah, a little bit.
but they already have the powers.
Yeah, which I think is really cool, and it's adapt. I think that's the word that I was
Adapt.
looking
No.
for. So that like you see, if they, it's almost like if they get hit with a blast from like Iceman, it's almost like if you've ever watched the show Heroes, Peter Petrelli's power, where he just kind of absorbs it from people around them. It's almost like they can do that. Whereas like they get hit with an ice blast, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden they've learned that, and now they can do the ice powers and things like that.
Yeah, which fuck, man. It was
It nerfs them just like it did with Peter in the show Heroes, but
you
it's a
have
cool
to.
concept.
I mean, yeah, which isn't in the comics, I
No,
think.
God no.
And it's an interesting way to like put Mystique in the forefront of the movie. It's a clever tie-in with the Sentinels. I liked it. But you're making these Sentinels these motherfuckers are OP. The Marvel universe, hell, the DC universe wouldn't survive with these versions of Sentinels.
Oh God no, nothing
It's
would.
a wrap.
Because they
These
even show
motherfuckers
when they
are ultra powerful.
Well, they even talk about when Wolverine goes back, and we'll get to the general plot of the movie in a minute. But when Wolverine goes back and he's talking uh, with Hank and Charles, and he's telling them like originally the Sentinels were programmed to take out mutants only, and then all of a sudden over time they adapted and almost like they evolved, where they could scan a human and be able to tell that in the future they would give birth to a mutant and then they would kill that human.
Yeah, which is I think it's a little different than like the animated series and the comics. There's like a whole there's like a whole thing with like basically like a bigger sentinel making smaller sentinels. But you know, they didn't do that approach. But I do, and I really like the way that they did it here. I mean, it's not comic accurate. They did their own thing, and I appreciate it. Like it's okay. I mean, I do appreciate that they just went a different route, but it you know if you're gonna go a different route, I this was a good way to do it, even though it's not comic accurate, which I would have preferred. But um, I I I can't hate on this direction that they chose to do with the Sentinels. Yeah,
Yeah,
just well done.
I think the hard part with if they were to keep it comic accurate, it limits to what they can do because if you're comic accurate, they're literally just gigantic robots. Where at least when they adapt in that adaptability that Mystique has and things like that, it at least gives them the ability to be a different enemy every time they fight, as opposed to just the same thing time and time again. And because they made them like say 12 feet tall instead of like the 40-foot ones in the comics and in the TV show,
Yeah,
it allows them to create an army of them as opposed to like 20 or 30.
true.
But
I mean, they had a fighting chance in in those storylines. In this one, there's nothing you can do. You can't fight. You can't fight that.
you know,
And you get the sense of that with in the movie. They like to one of the things I really liked about this movie is the way they handled like the tense situations. Like you feel it, and you're on the edge of your seat basically the entire time. Uh, anytime there is a tense moment,
yeah, I agree. But I'm gonna we're
especially with the Sentinels.
oh yeah. I mean, there's a scene later, so like you say, the tension when Magneto gets control over them, and it shows like Sentinel vision, whatever, and it starts to like target the humans. Immediately, you can feel that almost like a light switch flipped, and everybody is gone from like, oh, these things are really going to be helpful to what the fuck do we do now?
Yeah, pretty much.
But
Yeah, there's
for a
go
basic
ahead.
summary of, I'm just going to give a basic summary of the movie. I'm sure that anybody listening has already seen this movie, and if you haven't, we've already spoiled some things, but we're going to go through this whole movie and we're going to spoil everything pretty well. First off, the movie opens in a post-apocalyptic world where mutants and humans have been fighting in a war with the Sentinels, which are machines programmed to hunt down and kill all mutants. Wolverine has his consciousness sent back into his body with the help of Kitty Pryde or Shadowcat to the year 1973 in hopes of uniting Magneto and Charles to stop Mystique from assassinating Bolivar Trask, who is the developer of the Sentinel program, because they believe that stopping this event would change the future and prevent the war from ever starting. Now, when I first heard about, I mean, there was a Days of Future Past in the show, in the comics, and things like that. I don't remember that storyline as well as some others, but I know that it exists. But when when I was first reading, like not reading up, but my friends and things like that, and reading critics' reviews of this movie when it first came out, the idea of the whole time travel thing, I thought was pretty cool because I love time travel movies. I'm all on board. I love Back to the Future, all Hot Tub Time Machine, all those ridiculous time travel movies. So I thought this was a really cool way to do it. Um, I will say that when the movie opens and you see that post-apocalyptic world, I don't know if you thought the same thing, but all I could think about was Terminator, like the machine, like the war with the machines, like the way everything looks, and it just to me that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, I got a shade of that for sure, especially with like the robots taking over the future. Um, yeah, I could see that. It definitely had the shade of that.
I honestly the beginning I like that you see some new X Men that we haven't really seen. You get to see Sunspot, you get to see Warpath, you get to see fucking Bishop, which was awesome. I mean, he doesn't really do a ton, but to see Bishop was really cool.
Okay, to see Bishop was good.
I wish he would. I mean, because he was the one who went. He's the time traveler in the show and in the comics, but they didn't use him with this. They used Wolverine.
Yeah, in the show, it's like it's mixed between Bishop and Cable.
Yeah.
And in the comics, I know they're involved, but I know it's instead of Wolverine going back, it is Kitty Pryde that is sent back.
Well, but they also do it where they're sent back, whereas this is Wolverine. It's just his consciousness, and I think the reason they did that is because she even says because in the future you get a lot of our original X Men, so you get Patrick Stewart's back and Ian McKellen and Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman, and you even get Iceman, and but they say that Kitty Pryde says like Professor, you have the most brilliant mind or whatever she says in the world. We could send you back, and he says I can't because I wouldn't survive. But Wolverine, because he heals at such a rapid rate, his mind would be able to kind of heal itself, um, and he would be able to survive the trip, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah, the trauma damage.
Yeah, because I think he says to her like, "What if somebody's mind was able to heal itself as quickly as it's ripped apart?" Which, I mean, just the saying it that way sounds really grotesque, but kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah, I mean Wolverine is that's the whole reason why he's got adamantium bones is because he was the only one that could survive the process because of his healing. So to
Not in this movie, he doesn't. We get some
not in
fucking
this
bone
one,
claws.
not in this one, but again, they used his healing as a way to be the only person to be able to handle
Yeah,
the
I
situation.
I swear almost every one of these movies could just be called Wolverine and the other guys.
Which is unfortunate because Wolverine was part of like the second generation of X-Men. There's a whole bunch of characters before or even after. Like there's a whole lot of X-Men characters that are great and that should have more spotlight, but for some reason Wolverine and he's a great character, but there are so many great X-Men characters as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it would have been fine if they would have used like center the first movie around him because kind of use him as like the stepping stone to get people who aren't already big fans of the franchise kind of get their foot in the door, and then So I would have been fine if they would have just used him as one of the central pieces for the first movie, and then the second one, then start branching out. But the second one still is about him
Hmm.
because it's about all of his history with Stryker and Alkali Lake and all that shit.
Yeah. And within like the X-Men themselves, a lot of like the comic books, you got to think of like the X-Men universe, not the Marvel universe, the X-Men universe. You kind of compare it to Star Wars, as with Star Wars, it's all about the Skywalkers.
Dude, I love
With
Star Wars, but I'm so sick of hearing about the fucking Skywalkers.
and with X-Men, it's all about the Summers, like
Which,
the
but you,
Scott
but
Summers,
you know
and
what? They don't really do that much in the movies, which
they don't.
sucks because I love in First Class the kid who plays Havoc, who is Scott's older brother.
Hmm.
He's also TV's new MacGyver, but or new the show's canceled, but still, I thought he was great in that first movie, and then this one you see him in the 70s in Vietnam, but that's really you don't really see a whole hell of a lot else.
No, yeah, yeah, it was I enjoyed his character in First Class, even though he's supposed to be the younger brother, but that's whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, for you know, what they had him do in those movies, I enjoyed.
Yeah,
But
but
you
you
know,
know
could
what?
have used more of him.
Havoc's supposed to be his younger brother, but you know what? That I don't think they care too much about that because his father's also supposed to be a fucking space pirate on a crew called the Starjammers. I mean, I don't think they're worrying too much about that stuff.
No.
I will say it's fun. I like that you brought up when you mentioned the Last Stand about Iceman turning full ice. That's actually probably my favorite part of the opening scene. The big the big fight scene is having him not only turn to ice but also fucking do the ice bridge or whatever you want to call it when he propels himself.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
he
thought
did that.
that looked I thought that looked fucking awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, anytime Iceman's doing Iceman shit, I'm super hyped. Hopefully he gets more shine in these next movies.
Yeah, I'm nervous, but I'm also really excited to see what they're going to do with the X-Men in the MCU moving forward.
Yeah.
Because from everything that I've read and what I've heard, once Deadpool 3 comes out, this is again what I've heard. I don't know if it's changed or if it could change, but I've heard that this is going to be the end, officially the end for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Um,
Oh yeah, for sure.
which I don't know if if they plan on recasting him or if they're just going to move forward with the X-Men without him. Which, if they decide to go with the original X-Men, they don't need him.
No, they'll probably have like the new actor secretly in Deadpool and Wolverine, and they'll have like a passing of the torch type moment for sure.
I don't know because I would I wouldn't mind them to just leave him off and let like we said let the other cool characters and the other X-Men shine. Let them kind of get the spotlight
No,
instead of Wolverine again.
no, they'll Wolverine's gonna be in it. He'll be introduced quick quickly, but they'll definitely focus on probably the original team before. But no, it won't be centered around Wolverine. But who
I
knows?
fucking hope
They
not.
might. They could have just Wolverine have his own separate movies and team up movies with non X Men characters. There's a lot that they could do with Wolverine that doesn't involve X Men at all.
Hey, they tried giving him his own movies.
But did they have fucking Spider Man in it? Nah.
No, they had the Blob in it, who got his name by Wolverine calling him Bub.
If they want to make a guaranteed billion close to $2 billion. The only way to introduce Wolverine is through, and it sucks because Kevin Feige said they're never going to do it, is through a Hulk movie, because Wolverine was introduced in a Hulk comic book. So to have a Wolverine versus Hulk movie that's guaranteed billion right there.
Unfortunately, there's no way that they could do that because Universal will never let the Hulk be a part of that. That's all that political red tape shit.
Yeah, he can't have solo movies, but if he teams up with anybody, that's why they were allowed to do. He was in the Thor, is because it wasn't a solo movie. He's not allowed to. Yeah, as long as it's a team up movie of some sort.
Yeah.
But Kevin Feige said there's not going to be a solo Hulk movie, so that's not going to happen, unfortunately.
So what did you think in this movie about the casting of Peter Dinklage as Bolivar Trask?
Great.
I was kind of shocked when I first heard about it, and then when I saw the movie, I said, yeah, this actually fits really well. Like, he's really good as this character. I like Peter Dinklage. I think he's a really good actor.
I think he's one of the best actors in Hollywood.
I mean, you go and he's got quite a quite a large range of what he can do. I mean, you see him in things like Game of Thrones, and then you go back and see him in a comedic role in Elf, and then you get a serious, dramatic type villain role in this. I mean, then you get even Eitri in Infinity War in the MCU. He was really good, and I mean, wasn't a very big part, but I think, yeah, I agree. I think he's a great actor, regardless of his stature or anything like that.
No, it's the only thing that's limiting him. If he was of average height or even close to it, he would have had 3 Oscars already for sure.
But you know what? I really thought when he was cast in this movie that might change things, because typically in all the other films that he's in, like, it's really bad at this point. Like, it was bad back then, but it was played for comedy when he was in Elf, and they kept referring to him as an elf, which was really in bad taste. But then even like Game of Thrones, the character he played is written as a little person or things like that. Whereas this movie is the first movie that I can really remember that, if you look at the comics or the animated series, Bolivar Trask was just a regular person. So the fact that they cast him to play that role, I thought that might have been an indication that there might be more opportunities for him, um, to not only play those pigeonholed, but to let his actual acting ability come through as opposed to what he looks like.
Yeah, it's just one of those rare moments where they could do it, get away with it. Nobody would say anything.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's not a whole lot of movie roles written for. Even if they just write it straight and don't address it, Hollywood is funny when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
They have they just feel like it's all about making the money.
Yeah. Well, it's even like the whole thing with, there's been rumors that they wanted the next 007 to be a woman, and people are just fucking losing their goddamn minds over it. And it's like, I get that you're upset, but you know what? It's like, oh, how can it be James Bond? Well, James Bond isn't a person. James Bond and 007 are a moniker. They're almost like a call sign. So, like, who says it can't be a woman? Like, I don't get it.
Exactly.
That's completely beside the point. That's going off on a tangent that we really don't need to be talking about. But getting back to this movie, I like that. I like that they introduced Quicksilver, who I will call the real Quicksilver, not none of this fucking Sokovian nonsense in the MCU.
Yeah, it's as close as comic accurate in personality that you that they had so far of the character, for sure.
I think he's fantastic, and I love that he's helping them break Magneto out of this insane prison miles below the Pentagon. I love that when you find out that he was imprisoned for the JFK assassination.
Yeah,
I
just fun.
love what I love that they just kind of retcon. It was like, yeah, that magic bullet, quote unquote, that they talk about with the JFK assassination. Yeah, that's because Magneto did it.
Yeah,
And I love that before you meet Magneto, or no, actually, it might be later. Um, After he meets him, you hear Quicksilver says something. I think he asks Magneto what he can do, or he asks them what he can do, and he says he can control metal and that. And he goes, "My mom knew a guy or my mom used to know a guy who could do that." Well, I love that because in the comics, Magneto is his father, and I think actually there's a post credit scene in this that kind of confirms that he's Quicksilver's father.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Magneto is the father of Magneto and Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch.
Yes,
Um,
I like when they
yeah,
throw those little Easter eggs in there that not everybody
yeah. It's like we
will.
all goddamn know, but yeah, I like the little Easter eggs that they threw. They kind of tied it in there because in this movie it's not a direct thing, so they kind of threw in Easter eggs to put it in, make our own theories, and maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I do appreciate that they at least attempted to throw in some Easter eggs there.
Yeah. One of the things I will say, one of the nitpicks about this movie that I really, really dislike is I get that Hank has this serum that allows Charles to walk because for anybody listening who didn't watch First Class, Charles got shot in the spine. That's why he's in a wheelchair. Um, but Hank developed this serum that allows him use of his legs. The only problem is it kind of limits and doesn't allow him to use his powers. But then Hank uses this. It seems like Hank either uses the same serum or he just has the ability to transform from human to beast, which really bugs me because that was never the way in the comic or the show. And Beast would always he would always kind of say like, "This is who I am. Like I'm not going to change for anybody," type thing. And then they take this movie and it's like, no, we need to make him look more human. And I know it's because they cast an actor like Nicholas Holt and he's a young up and comer, good looking kid, like but come on. If you're gonna put him playing the character of Beast, let him play the character of fucking Beast.
It could have been a thing where the actor just didn't want to do the makeup.
Then cast a different fucking actor. You
three
know what I mean?
movies in 3 movies in a successful franchise, the actor kind of has say of what they want happening.
They did the same thing with Jennifer Lawrence because in First Class she wasn't quite as big of a name, but by the time this one was out, The Hunger Games had come out. She was a huge star, so that's why for most of this movie she's just Jennifer Lawrence. Like she's not as Mystique nearly as often as she just looks like herself.
Yeah, she's either herself or another being disguised as another person.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for not wanting to do that makeup and whatnot. But it's like if you sign on to do a movie like even just the first one, it's like, well, clearly if this does well, they're going to want to make sequels. And if you're playing one of those characters that has to be covered in makeup, if you're not willing to do 2, 3 movies of it, just don't do it because
Agree.
you get like I'm a huge fan, especially of a character like Beast. And then for most of this movie, I have to stare at Nicholas Holt's face instead of what I want to see, which is a fucking big blue hairy monster looking dude.
Yeah, I agree. Which is why all those characters will now be CG. So no makeup chairs.
Yeah, that's very true.
They'll all be CG. It's like, all right, you get what you want. But yeah, I mean, I get them not wanting to do it, but yeah, if you gotta sacrifice, if it's your character. So I get both sides, but for the sake of the movie, just do it.
No, I know
Sorry.
what you mean. I do
Yeah.
like, and I mean they were both in first class, but I really do like the portrayal by James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as a young Xavier and Magneto. I think they both did a really good job, especially Michael Fassbender. But I think that he can do almost anything to begin with. I
Yeah.
mean, I think he
There,
would be. I think Michael Fassbender with jet black hair would be a fantastic James Bond. Oh,
there's like 1,000 roles he could do well. I think he'd be a good Doom.
I think, like I say, I think he could do any. I think he could be anything. To be honest.
But yeah, they are good in their respective roles. But what really shines is when they're together and the chemistry between the two actors. I think it's really great.
Absolutely. I mean, I have the movie on in the background on mute right now, and it's the scene where they're on the private jet and they're going to sit down and play chess, and it's literally like a 2-3 minute scene of them just kind of going back and forth, and in that little amount of time, you can feel the history that these two characters have together, and that's a really rare thing for two actors to be able to portray believably when you don't have years upon years of movies or say like a TV show type thing to back that up.
Well, it only solidifies itself even more when uh, the older actors have basically the same chemistry. So it's even more believable, right?
Yeah, I think the and it's maybe the mannerisms aren't the same, this and that, but
Oh
I
no,
think
not at all.
I think you can sacrifice that for having that level of, like you say, that level of chemistry that crosses both generations of the characters.
Yeah, but I think Michael Fassbender, I think he did try to mimic Ian McKellen's.
Yeah, he does it more than McAvoy does Patrick Stewart.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's noticeable in this movie more with Michael Fassbender. I think in the other movies he wasn't trying, but this one yeah, he was definitely going for Ian McKellen mannerisms.
Yeah, I just no. There's this movie is just so much fun to watch from start to finish, whether it be the tension or the comedic parts. I mean, even just in terms of visuals, it looks the movie looks fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Even
colors.
well, there are a lot of colors, but like even when they arrive at the summit or whatever you want to call it, and you get the camera looking like it's looking through an old style camcorder, and it's got that little bit of grainy footage, and the way they splice it in, it looks really cool.
Yeah. No, yeah, I appreciated the cinematography in this movie was great, man. CG still holds up. You know, it's a 10-year-old movie. It's really crisp and clean. You could see what's going on, even with the Sentinels being like alien robotic. You could still see what's happening. It's and action was great. Yeah, visually it's even when they go back in the 70s, the grainy footage, I appreciated that. It gave it a real feel of that era, and you felt like you definitely felt like you were in that era when you watched it on screen.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, it was great, man. Like definitely well done with
I'll even say
like the
even
set design and the cinematography.
I'll even say like even the costumes that they put them in. Like again, like I said, I've got the movie on in the background, and when they pull in in the car with the four with Wolverine, Xavier, Magneto, and Hank, and you see just the sunglasses. Like the car is kind of dark, and there's just light on their faces, and you see the sunglasses. It looks so 70s, but it looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like that this movie, in again, this is it goes back to a Wolverine storyline, but I like that you get a young William Stryker in this movie, and that Wolverine is eventually confronted with him knowing what he's going to do to him just a few years into the future.
Yeah, there was a scene with that same guy in, I think it was First Class. There's like
That
a quick,
sounds right.
yeah. So I'm glad that they got the same actor. So I think it was like Mystique at the end pretended to be that character. So I think they might have retconned it or rewrote it because that character is back. Unless they explained it in the movie, I wasn't paying attention on why that character's back. But in Days of or First Class, at the end, it was Mystique posing as. I don't know. So yeah. So I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I know he's back in this because when originally when you see Mystique go to Saigon, which would be in the middle of the Vietnam War, and she is disguised as a major or a colonel, or I don't remember the rank, um, but she's disguised as a high-ranking military officer, and basically goes into the bunker or not bunker barracks, I should say, of all these mutant soldiers, including that's where we get to see Havoc, and you also see Toad in there, and a few others whose names are escaping me at the moment. But that's when Stryker originally comes in because he wants to take them basically back to Trask for them to be experimented on, and Mystique as this army colonel or whatever won't allow that to happen. She's like, nope, your orders are overridden. This is what's going to happen. They're coming with me, and she basically puts them on a plane and gets them out of there before Stryker can come and find them.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds about right.
But even in this movie, when they get to the scene where the assassination of Trask is supposed to take place, where Mystique is disguised as the Vietnamese, I believe. Again, another high-ranking military general or whatever he is. I really like that scene in the boardroom when, because her like watching Mystique, whether I find that Jennifer Lawrence does it a hell of a lot more than Rebecca Romijn did, but doing the martial arts and the fighting, I think if it's actually her doing it, that's fantastic. I'm assuming it's not. I'm assuming it's a stunt person, but I think it looks really cool with the way that she does that. And the choreography of all of her fight scenes pretty well, I think are really well done.
Yeah, the fight scenes mimic the Mystique from the older X-Men movies, but she just does it more. She relies on it a lot more in this movie. You see it more,
Yeah.
anyways.
And I now that I mean we're saying different, like the younger version of this and that character, I much prefer the Jennifer Lawrence portrayal as opposed to Rebecca Romijn's in the original.
Think so?
I do personally,
I
but
well,
I also
Mystique.
think
The thing about Mystique is she is always been a villain. She's a villain. She's never been like considered a good person or had like a good maybe since she's had a good, an arc that redeems her in some way, maybe not. But no, she's always been looked at as a hardcore villain.
oh for sure.
And in these movies they kind of, at least, First Class and the newer iteration of the movies, try to make her to be some type of, at least not a straight villain. So like when they tried to make her like the Rebecca Remain version, it was like her turning her like villain arc didn't seem organic or believable
No.
when we were made to think that she was actually a good person. It was just a conflict there.
Yeah. I do like, though, in these movies that they show her as a little kid with young Charles, and when she breaks into his childhood home, and that's kind of basically how they started their relationship. And clearly Charles has been basically in love with her for 30 years or whatever, and it just isn't in the cards type thing, because she becomes, especially in First Class, she sees how mutants are being treated and things like that, and she becomes susceptible to Magneto's, I guess, propaganda is a good way to put it, and she becomes a disciple of his.
Yeah. Yeah, which I'm okay with. But just the execution of it was kind of, if it was rushed or just not executed great. Could have been done a lot better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I do have a question though. The scene when they stop Mystique from killing Trask and whatnot, and then Magneto, or well, yeah, young Magneto, basically says, "Now, in order to save us all, he's going to kill Mystique." Or Hank tackles him before he's able to fire, but he uses his powers to fire the gun. And Mystique has jumped out a window. They're on like the third floor or something like that of this building. The bullet doesn't. So Magneto curves the bullet once it leaves the window to go down to follow her. How the fuck does he see where it's going? Because he can't, unless they're positing that he can basically see, almost like
You could see through the metal.
that. That's what I mean. Like almost like his eye is looking out the end of the bullet. Like he knows where. How does he fucking manage to actually hit her? He can't see her.
This is Magneto. What are you talking about?
That's not an answer.
That's what that was in the script. He's Magneto.
I get that it was in the script. I'm like, I don't get.
You're not supposed to. Mutants. Powers. Magneto.
Maybe I'm just
He's that
looking.
powerful. He's that powerful.
Maybe I'm just
Maybe
looking
he
too much
can.
into it.
Like maybe he can see through the metal. They haven't established it or hinted that he can do some shit like that. But yeah, no. Yeah, it was kind of wild that they did that without much explanation.
I did like in I've actually found that the part of that scene was really funny before he actually does that, or sorry, just after, um, when Wolverine sees Stryker on the ground, he's been tased, and he starts getting like flashbacks of what happened and kind of starts losing it, and it shows that in the future in his coma-like state that Kitty Pryde has him in, he kind of flips out and starts flailing his arms with his claws extended, and he hits her and causes a wound with her. So that's a possible negative thing that will impact what's going on in the future. But I love that it's almost like his consciousness is leaving his body from the 70s, and he doesn't know what's going on or where he is, and as he's in the middle of this and Charles is trying to help him, fucking Beast pops up over Charles's shoulder, and he just goes, "What the hell is that?" I don't
Yeah,
know why, but I laughed so hard. I laugh my ass off every time that scene comes up. Anytime I've ever watched this movie, it's just I find it so funny that you get a character like Wolverine who's always portrayed as this fucking ultimate badass who can handle anything, and then all of a sudden Beast pops up and he jumps out of his skin. Like, what the fuck is this thing?
yeah, it seemed like a genuine reaction. I think that's why it was funny.
I agree. I think so too.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was funny. It was like a genuine, organically funny moment.
Yeah,
An otherwise very bleak film.
yeah. It's just a bit of depressing ideas in what comes in this movie. Because it's like if you fail, you're all fucking wiped out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that was the stakes in the original comic book run. So yeah,
It sounds right.
it I appreciate that they gave us that sense of them being absolutely fucked if they don't do this right.
I find it a little strange though that when they start looking for Mystique, Charles, Hank, and Wolverine go into the basement of the mansion so that Charles can use Cerebro, and the entire basement looks identical in 1973 to what it looks like in the year 2000.
Yeah, they didn't do much upgrading.
It looks the exact. Everything is identical. Even fucking Cerebro looks the same. It's like there's no fucking way. I mean, computers in the 80s took up an entire room, and now we have, like, I know it's not 2000 right now, but in 2000 we had desktops and we had laptops and
Yeah, we didn't
like
have the type of locking automatic door mechanisms that they had. Like, no, there's no
but
way
like
they would.
but like even the walls are all the same. It's like that stainless steel with like a blue tinge, and
Hmm.
everything looks fucking identical. I found that so off-putting and so weird. I was hoping to see some like fucking wood paneling and some shag rugs.
Or just maybe just a prototype to all these, like, have it look like it, but be like a really, really early stages of it. But yeah, no, yeah, having it look just the same was kind of strange.
Yeah, it was just really odd, and I couldn't kind of the scenes when they were down there. I just couldn't get past it.
Yeah, I could see that. It didn't bother me as much. I kind of just accepted it and kind of like, okay, and moved on. I was like, this is whatever. Had questions, obviously, when I seen it, but I rolled with that one.
Yeah, I mean, clearly now, like I said, he's in Cerebro, so clearly Charles has decided to stop taking his. I almost call it a potion. His serum.
Which
So
they kind of retconned it because, yeah, in first class he was paralyzed from a gun, but I think Charles had a line in this movie saying that his ability to walk is tied in with his powers, which that is comic accurate.
yeah,
His ability to walk was taken away with the discovery of his powers, his
which,
mutation.
which is a really weird thing to kind of connect.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a wild idea, but being a child of like the 60s, some wild ideas came out of that time, so it doesn't surprise me that somebody would come up with something like that at that time
Yeah,
because it is wild. It's wild.
you come up with crazy things when you're on fucking drugs. And as much as I love what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all these guys did and came up with, they had to have been high as balls thinking up some of the characters in these comic books.
Mm-hmm. Or just the powers, right? Because
Oh, they're fucking
the X-Men
endless.
had different powers than the traditional superhero. Traditional superhero has like super strength and speed, and they could fly.
Or they're
But
invisible.
the
Or
X-Men is the first time where like, okay, this person can control the weather, and this one has not only concussive blast that comes out of his eyes. No, it's a dimension that his eyes are doorways through. It's fucking crazy. X-Men powers are crazy and takes a lot of like imagination to come up with a really like a good X-Men character.
yeah, their powers are just off the wall, and the sheer amount of them. I mean, to come up with.
There's hundreds.
Uh,
Because the X-Men blew up in the 80s and they were so popular. They were carrying Marvel for a long time to the
oh,
point where there was X-Men and X-Force and X-Factor and there's a million different X-Men teams and books. It was insanity.
dude, if
And
it was
somehow Wolverine was a part of all of them.
always,
How are you a part of 17 teams, sir? He was a part of New Avengers and X-Men
it's because
and the
he's
regular roster Avengers at
it's
some
because
point.
he's Weapon
And he was
X.
no, it was the new X-Men. Then he had a like a Black Ops. What was it? X Factor, some shit like that. With Deadpool, he was on
Uh,
25 teams at once. It was
yeah, he was.
insane.
There was X Force. Yeah, there was all kinds of them. I mean, even the shows. You had the original animated series, and then you had X-Men Evolution or Evolutions or whatever it was. There were like three different and I'm pretty sure Wolverine is in all of those too.
Yeah. After X-Men Evolution, like some years later, there was an X-Men cartoon. It came. I think it was only 1 or 2 seasons. It literally was Wolverine and the X-Men. It's
Yeah, that
actually
doesn't
pretty good.
surprise me.
It's actually pretty good.
The only X-Men cartoon I ever watched was the animated series. I might have watched a little bit of Evolution, but not the way that I watched the animated series.
Evolution is actually amazing. All its different take on the whole thing, but it was well done. It was
Yeah.
really well done for a for an animated property.
I will say the climax of this movie really shows the scope of what Magneto's powers are when he lifts up an entire fucking baseball stadium
What's more impressive, the baseball stadium in
or
this
the
one, or
bridge.
the bridge and the?
I would say the baseball stadium only because there's no fucking stupid snarky line read by Ian McKellen. I hate when he's moving that and he's like, and it's almost like a dig at Xavier.
But you can't
Be,
tell me he didn't sell that line though. He sold it. He
oh,
sold
100%
it.
he did because he's got like a little smirk and he just
Fassbender
Char-
couldn't sell that line.
Charles always wanted us to build bridges.
Fassbender couldn't sell that line.
He says it in the same way that he says the line to Rogue in the second one. We love what you've done with your hair.
I'll say the bridge.
I don't know. I gotta say that the ball stadium. He picks up an entire fucking stadium and carries it halfway across Washington D.C. and drops it around the White House.
I think was he controlling the Sentinels at the same time too?
Yes, he was.
God damn, bro. Fucking calm down.
And he
Calm down, Magneto.
I mean
Jesus Christ.
Ian McKellen did it a little bit too.
This
But
motherfucker struggled to move a fucking bomb in like the first X-Men First Class. Now he goes from that to this. This shit was crazy. That shit was crazy. That was an evolution in his his control.
oh, for sure.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
I will say I love the look with Fassbender where he's basically flying or floating, whatever you want to call it, and he's got the full costume with the cape and the helmet. He looks fucking badass.
Yes.
Also, I will say this is my favorite portrayal of these movies of Halle Berry as Storm. And I say that because she says almost nothing, but you get to see her powers.
Yeah, you actually see what she is capable of doing, even though it's like a fraction of what she's really capable of doing. And I'm glad that she got killed. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not a fan. I am a fan of the fact that she went off and she did some powerful shit. Cause Storm is honestly, when it comes to X-Men, she's like top five for
Oh, for
sure.
sure. And Halle Berry just was such poor casting.
She just doesn't have the presence.
No. Which is odd because she's such a fantastic actor.
She is. It's just she's not. She doesn't have. with Storm, it's all like its presence, and she's has a real royal, but like yeah, like she's like royalty basically, and that's how she carries herself, and that's the vibe you get whenever she speaks or whenever you see her on screen. She carries herself like a queen. And
Yeah.
Halle Berry doesn't emulate that at all.
No.
So even though she's a great actress, I'm not. She just wasn't right for the role. But
No, I agree.
this was the best portrayal of her because we actually got to see her use her powers to what we're used to seeing her in animated or comic book form.
Hey, she just got killed.
Yeah, disrespectively, which
Oh,
whatever.
she's fucking stabbed from behind and just thrown off a cliff.
Yep, I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad at that.
But again, like this scene that I'm watching where it's the future fight, you get. I mean, it sucks that you get zero backstory on such an iconic character like Bishop. But then you've got like I love the fact that you have Blink and Sunspot and I mean Warpath is fucking badass. But I think Blink, I love her ability, her powers, the fucking little portals that she just opens and closes, and I
Yeah,
think
she's
that's a really good ability, and she uses it quite well and effectively.
yeah. I was never really familiar with the character. It's not really if she is shown in animated form.
No, I don't
There's no.
remember her either.
Yeah, I'm sure she's a fan favorite in comics. I just wasn't familiar with her before
But
going into the movie.
but I will say the way that I'm watching this scene and her manipulating these portals, especially with the scene with not Cyclops, Colossus. She basically makes a portal way up in the air and he dives through it straight down, and she opens one in the ground, and then he goes through that one and comes out of one and basically spears through a sentinel. It just reminds me of the video game Portal, which I was such a huge fan of. And I think that might be why I like her powers so much.
Yeah, because the video game power. Yeah, no, yeah. This movie, especially that scene, they definitely respected certain characters, like the character you just mentioned, but disrespected so many other ones. Colossus is one of them. They just rip my man apart. They just rip him apart and just throw him in a very just no pun intended thrown away scene.
I need to
Very quick.
ask I need to ask what version of Colossus do you prefer?
Deadpool. Deadpool, because that's how he is in the comic books, and even the animated. That is who he is.
Yeah,
Especially the look. Like if you're gonna do Colossus right, give me the look. Make him a giant hulkling dude.
yeah, I agree.
But he's got a heart of gold, and he's like, there's gonna be a character that sacrifices himself. He's usually one of the first volunteers.
Yeah, I will say this scene. I want the scene where the rebar, the rebar scene, as it's called, when Magneto puts all those rebar into Wolverine, because as we alluded to before, he does not have the adamantium skeleton yet, and so therefore he does not have that metal coursing through his body. So Magneto can't control him like he normally would be able to. So he takes all of these rebar and basically manipulates them to stab in all different areas of his body and just launches him fucking into the river. And he's basically out of the movie until you see Stryker pulling him out of the water, which is what leads him to go into the Weapon X program, which gives him the adamantium, so on and so forth. I like how they connected it that way. I found that was That was a nice little another Easter egg there. That while they changed some things, others were almost like destined to happen.
Yeah, especially it was an Easter egg that moment itself with the rebar, because there's a moment in the comic books very famously where Magneto rips the
The whole
antimony.
yeah,
He rips it from his bones and it goes through his skin. Very similar, like the rebar.
I would fucking love to see that in a movie. There's no way they would do it because I think that the movie would instantly be fucking rated R, if not worse.
I mean, there's a way to do it, but no, yeah,
No, if they're gonna do it, I need to see it.
yeah,
As
but no.
horrific as
This
that would
is
be, I need to see it.
it's as close as you're gonna get for a while is what they did in Days of Future Past.
I know.
But yeah, no, they yeah, that's why they did it, to pay homage to that very famous panel.
Oh, 100%.
But yeah,
I, I,
they used it also to connect Stryker and the future Weapon X program.
I never noticed that. Again, like I say, with the movie on in the background, when Magneto has basically the presidential cabinet, and he's got all the cameras pointed at them, it shows Quicksilver watching what's going on the TV, and he's got his sister, which is is odd, but he's got his little sister sitting on his lap, which clearly is meant to be Wanda, even though they're supposed to be twins. She's
Yeah.
like she's like 6 years younger than him, if not more. But I that doesn't bother me as much because I've never noticed it until this rewatch that she was there in plain view, and I think that's kind of cool.
hmm Yeah, she talks to Wolverine. She's
When
like when he first when he first introduced to Quicksilver, she says something like he mentions like he's the Wolverine, and she says something like she's I don't know like a she mentions like she's like a some type of animal.
oh, I don't remember that. I must have
E.
missed it.
Is there? I think it was really quickly. Yeah, it was a really quick scene, but yeah, it's in there. You're too busy ranting about Beast's makeup. you, you weren't paying attention to that
The
scene.
disrespect to my character.
Yeah, I don't know if they. I guess she's supposed to be Wanda. They don't mention her name or anything.
I'm guessing she's supposed to be just as like again as another Easter egg.
I guess could have cast somebody like around. Could have just made it a twin. That would have been cool.
That's what they should have done because
That would have been neat. But they're like, nah, we're gonna do our own thing. Which is fine. It's their own established alternate universe. That's whatever. The movie verse. That's what they want to do.
yeah.
But if you're gonna do it, go all the way. Like try to make it as accurate as you can. If you're gonna introduce it.
What I've always questioned about this is in this final scene in the climax when Mystique shows back up and she's once again threatening to kill Trask or whoever. She then ends up turning the gun on Magneto and she shoots him. I think in the neck, like just kind of grazes him in the neck.
I think it went through his fucking neck because there's like an entry wound and an exit wound. I think.
I thought it was just along the side.
I don't know. It happened quick. At least like the damage that you see. I want to say it went through his fucking neck.
How did he not die?
I don't know. Maybe it didn't go through
I thought it was just his like a
because it was a
great.
plastic gun and maybe they're weak bullets. I don't know.
I thought it
It
was.
just looked
I thought it was just like the side of his neck. But either way, so
the
that
way
kind of
that yeah, the way that they shot it, it looked like it to me. It looked like it went through, even though it probably didn't.
yeah.
It just I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it.
Well, I like that this scene. I mean, obviously Eric, Magneto, doesn't kill anybody. But he does kind of get on his soapbox on the news cameras and whatnot. And this is really the beginning of him starting his brotherhood and Charles really starting the X-Men. I like that they used this as kind of a real branching point for one goes one way, one goes the other. And it feels earned considering what they've gone through their relationship, their friendship over the years. And you can see and you can feel that emotion that Charles has as he watches Magneto kind of fly away and then watches Raven or Mystique, whatever you want to call her, walk out like he's lost her. Like you can see that emotion on James McAvoy's face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a good piece of acting on his part.
And he doesn't say anything. It's all in facial expressions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one thing that area that James McAvoy shines is getting that those facial expressions, the facial acting. Really good at it.
And yet it still couldn't save that fucking movie Wanted.
But it was great and Split.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I was waiting for you to say that, but that was still a great movie. I was like, don't you dare.
Wanted was okay.
Wanted sucked.
Wanted was alright. It's a good idea.
It,
Poor execution.
yeah,
But some moments were pretty good. Angelina Jolie was pretty good in that movie. Can't even hate on her in that movie.
I just didn't like it in general.
I could
I
see why
mean,
people would hate it.
the
But
one the only scene that I liked is when she does the like the e-brake turn, whatever you want to call it, with the door open and catches James McAvoy in the door or in the seat type thing.
yeah.
That's the only scene of that movie that I really is to me is worth remembering. Everything else is just garbage. But one
Yeah.
I will say I like in this movie when after they've defeated Magneto and everything is kind of said and done, the next scene you see is Wolverine waking up in present day in the mansion and everybody's alive. You get to see Kitty Pryde and Colossus teaching a class. You see Storm with the kids. You see Kelsey Grammer returns as fucking Beast the way he should be. And then you get to see Jean Grey and Cyclops because as we said, the last stand never happened. Thank fucking Christ.
Or it hasn't happened yet.
Don't ruin this.
Hasn't happened yet.
Don't ruin this. It will not happen. It will never happen.
Hey, hey. It's only inevitable. It's inevitable. It's only a
And,
matter.
and Xavier's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good to see the old cast back. It was a great send off. Glad that they got everybody to do that because it makes the scene that much sweeter. Um, yeah, it would have been a great send off for Patrick Stewart had he not, you know, or even and Wolverine 2 wasn't for
Logan.
Logan. But even though that is one of the most depressing superhero movies of all time,
Oh, it's
I
honestly,
like I like the way they send off the characters in this one rather than Logan, even though it was a great and better movie, Days of Future Past, when it comes to like just a film perspective. It was fucking depressing, man.
honestly, I like Logan, but because of the subject matter, it's almost too hard to watch.
Yeah, it's one of those
Like
movies you probably only watch maybe once.
yeah, like these movies, like the original X-Men or First Class or or even this one, they're fun. Like you can pop them in and just have fun with the X-Men. Whereas Logan is so serious and so
Yeah, and even though
painstakingly depressing.
yeah, and in this movie is, you know, very serious and some would say depressing moments. The fact that there's so much going on in this movie that you really don't have time to like sit into any one emotion.
Yeah, because you
Like
keep jumping into the next action set piece or the next scene, or there's always something coming. It's never you don't get to just sit on one.
there's so much happening.
Yeah,
There's so
exactly.
much going on. And I when I did my rewatch, I did the road cut.
I don't think I've ever actually seen the road cut, but
Yeah, I decided to watch that, and it definitely is an extra added layer of
now
drama and emotion.
what is added for that? I
She is replaced when Kitty Pryde gets fucking slashed. They rescue her. They rescue Rogue because the Sentinels are they've held her somewhere.
and then what? She just absorbs Kitty Pryde's powers.
Pretty much.
Wouldn't that kill Kitty Pryde?
I think she was pretty much already dead anyways, so they did what they had to do.
And that's the only difference.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Because she's in this when Logan wakes back up in the mansion. He comes out of his room and down the hall he sees Bobby and Rogue kind of holding hands, walking off together down the hallway. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't see her speak. You don't even get a close up. It's just like a wide shot where you see Bobby and Rogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had a decent role in the movie that they decided to completely cut out. Which is strange.
Now I'm going to ask you: did you watch the post credit scene?
Not on my rewatch, but I know I've seen it in the theaters.
I had no idea there was a post credit scene until this rewatch.
What was it again?
It sets up Apocalypse.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I definitely seen the theater, but I didn't watch it on my rewatch.
Which I will say that when we did the our episode a couple weeks ago on the first X-Men movie, I remember you and I had said that we hadn't seen Apocalypse.
I seen
Well,
like the I know I've seen scenes, and maybe I think I attempted on watching it, and I didn't get past like the first 5-10 minutes.
so that's what I did. So I watched Days of Future Past, and then a couple days later, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking sit down and I'm gonna give this a try. I think I made it 20 minutes and I passed out. It's it's boring. It's not good.
No, it's one
And
of those movies. I don't think I've seen it, and I think I did. Yeah, I saw it in the theaters, but I knew it was gonna be trash. You could kind of tell by the trailer and the fact that
it
we,
looks nothing like Apocalypse.
yeah, yeah, the trailer of the movie didn't sell it, especially with showing us the look of Apocalypse. It's fucking terrible.
Apocalypse is fucking blue and purple, and they make him this gray drab.
He is very
Just
purple. He in some scenes he is very purple. He changes colors and throughout the movie. It's weird. Because I remember seeing scenes. In some scenes he's gray, and in some scenes he's purple as fuck. So
I
I don't know.
tried, I couldn't get through it, and because of that experience, I don't think I will ever even attempt to watch fucking Dark Phoenix
No.
with all the shit that I've heard about that.
What about New Mutants?
No, no interest. I haven't heard a single good thing. I haven't read anything that's positive. So I'm just gonna hedge my bets and avoid that one.
If you're gonna go X-Men, that is actually fucking really good. I would suggest Legion.
I have
That is
heard Legion is good.
um yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. That was the only there have been several X-Men properties that they try to get off the ground through a television series, and I think Legion was the only one that was actually successful.
Yeah, I've heard that it's pretty good. I have been meaning to check it out. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. It's on my list that seems to be ever expanding of things to watch.
Mm-hmm. That was good. I didn't finish it, but I really liked what I seen. Just got buried by other shows that I forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, unless you've got anything else to add, I think that's going to wrap it up for our discussion on Days of Future Past. Like I say, unless you've got anything that we missed or that you wanted to talk about, I think
Uh-uh.
I've
I don't think
got.
so. I think all my notes are, yeah, everything's pretty much covered. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll move right into closing thoughts if you wanna give yours first and your ranking. And
Yeah. This movie as a whole is very enjoyable. Um, Great writing, good acting. I love the set pieces, the costume design, the cinematography. It's really well done. The scenes that are supposed to be in the past, you kind of believe that you are in the past when you see it. Um, Most of the characters I enjoyed. The ones that I didn't, I've said before in other reviews. Um, the newer actors, the one that really stuck out that I didn't like was the Bishop. I liked the character, but she didn't really wasn't really feeling the actor. I just felt like they just hired the one actor that had long dreads and was decent. Uh, but as far as negatives, that's there isn't many. Like I said, I did really enjoy it then. I still enjoy it now. I My rating is I'm gonna give it a solid 9. Or yeah, I'll give it a 9.
okay, yeah, that's. I didn't think you'd go quite that high, but I'll accept that 100%. Personally, I love this movie. I find it incredibly rewatchable. Um, it's fun, it's exciting, and like you said, the cinematography, the costumes, the set design, everything is fantastic. It has great visuals, and I love that it brings together both the. It's weird calling it old because there's only 14 years between the first movie and this one, but it brings together the old guard and the new with the Fassbender and McAvoy with McKellen and Stewart specifically. Um, I really love the way you get to see both versions of those characters. Um, yeah, I love this movie, and I would highly recommend this pretty much to everybody, especially if you are. I mean, if you're a comic book fan, especially if you're a Marvel fan and you haven't seen this movie, I mean, what are you doing? Like, get off your ass and check this movie out. Um, I'm not. I wouldn't go quite to a 9, but I would give this a solid 8. Um, I after rewatch, I think this might be my favorite of the X-Men movies.
Really?
Personally, I mean, if it's not this one, I still keep coming back to X2. X2 is so good, but again, it feels more like a Wolverine movie. It feels more like a Wolverine movie accompanied by X-Men. Whereas this movie, I feel that he's more used as a tool as opposed to as a main character. I find that this movie does focus more on the Magneto and Xavier relationship and those characters, and just kind of uses Wolverine to facilitate the contact and the thing that they have to do. And I think that might be why, because to me this is an X-Men movie.
It feels more like one for sure.
And I
The
think
most
that's
out
what
of
gives it
out
a
of
leg up in my book.
most out of all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that this one in First Class, like you said earlier, they feel more like X-Men movies, where the others just feel like action movies or whatever type of movie featuring some of the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, you give it a 9, I give it an 8, so we're just above the IMDb and right around where the Rotten Tomatoes scores are. You're closer than I am, but so that's gonna do it for this episode of Geeked Out. And as always, you can follow us on our socials, which will be posted in the description of the episode. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe, rate, and review. We really appreciate it. We are pretty much available everywhere you get your podcasts, except I'm still having a pain in the ass getting us uploaded onto Apple Podcasts, but we are also on YouTube, audio only, but we are up on YouTube if you want to follow us on there and leave a comment. Um, so next week we're gonna go and just do we kind of discussed what we wanted to do, and we're gonna go into the world of comedy next week, and comedy, sci-fi, and we are going to watch Evolution, the David Duchovny, Julianne Moore film from, I want to say it was the early 2000s. I remember that. I don't even remember what year it was, but I'm very excited to rewatch this movie. I haven't seen this. I shouldn't say I've watched this movie probably 6 to 8 months ago, but I love this movie, and I'm very excited to watch it again.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Spoiler alert to everybody listening, I'm going to have rave reviews of this movie.
Yeah, we'll see how I feel about it on my rewatch.
If you liked it before, I have a feeling you're still going to enjoy it.
Oh yeah. Don't think I'll be much of a difference, but we'll see.
But that's going to do it for us. So until next time, thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing. Take it easy, everybody.
Peace.